Kirby's Dream Land 2. This, isn't the second game in the series. Released in March 21st in 1995 for the Game Boy in Japan, and a few days later for the other regions. This is not the second game in the series, but rather the 6th game in the series. Almost a full year after the first game released, the sequel came for the NES, and it actually took place right after the first game. So that right there is a proper sequel. Dreamland 2 has its own story, so fans have called Dreamland 2, 3, and 64 the Dark Matter trilogy, since those three games in particular take place right after another. Dreamland 2 being the start of the trilogy. I played this game as a kid through Kirby's Dream Collection on the Wii. Only Dreamland 2 and 64 were the only games I had never played on it. I don't even remember how long it's been since I have booted up Dream Collection just to play Dreamland 2. Only reason why I'm doing it now is to show footage. But I did beat the full game as a kid, outside of not being able to do some of the challenges, but we'll get back to that later. This game was released for Switch Online a while back, but that was after I got into video game collecting, so I just decided to buy the actual cartridge, as well as the first Kirby's Dream Land, since I never bought that for my Game Boy either for some reason. But wait, you prefer to play games on original hardware. How will you capture footage on the Game Boy? Meet the Super Game Boy, my friend. This thing is pretty well known now, and I don't want to talk too long about it, otherwise this section of the video will seem like filler. But long story short, you put a Game Boy game on the top, put it in the Super Nintendo, and you can play it on the TV. And yes, I do have a way to record Super Nintendo footage. So let's finally start the game. Why is it so loud? Yeah, some Game Boy games have special features if you play it on the Super Game Boy. One of them being more realistic sound. But the volume is just way too high for it, while the rest of the game sounds extremely quiet. And the colors change depending on where you are in the game, but it's still limited to one color. This game doesn't have an intro cutscene, but it does have a story. The rainbow bridges that connect the Rainbow Islands have been stolen by an evil force called Dark Matter, who has plans on conquering Dreamland. So it's up to Kirby and his new animal pals, more about them later, to collect the rainbow drops and stop Dark Matter. Kirby platforms through 7 worlds. The earlier worlds have like 3 levels, while the 7th world has a whopping 7. The game is pretty short, but pretty dang impressive for a Game Boy game. As for Kirby's controls, they've been nerfed compared to Kirby's Adventure. Kirby's Adventure greatly expanded on Kirby's moveset from the first game, being able to run, slide attack, and of course, copy abilities. In Dreamland 2, the copy abilities do return thankfully, but you can no longer run or slide attack. But the game makes up for it by introducing the animal buddies, Rick the hamster, Coo the owl, and Kind the sunfish. Rick sadly doesn't do a lot in this game. He was given much better abilities to jump on enemies and climb up walls in Dreamland 3, but in Dreamland 2, he doesn't do much aside from reminding me of my pet hamster I used to have, who I also named Rick because he looks like him. Coo the owl flies so fast! And Kind the sunfish is pretty much like Coo, but underwater. Kind does the impossible by making water levels fun, but dang is he slow on land. All 3 of the animal buddies have a different variation of your copy ability, which is pretty cool. You get them by defeating a mini-boss or an enemy, and they come out of a bag. However, if you already have an animal buddy, then Gooey will appear randomly. So your debut wasn't from here. He only heals you by 1 point if you get him. But wait, there's also a chance that Choo Choo will appear. However, the chances are way less likely. And she gives you a 1-up. And she's also required for 100%. So good luck, shiny hunters. As for collectibles, this was the first Kirby game to introduce the star mechanic. You get a certain amount of stars and you get a 1-up. Basically the coins from Mario, except you need way less to get a 1-up. And there aren't a lot to find in the levels. And of course, the rainbow drops. 1 hidden in each world. And they're needed for 100%. Getting them can be pretty tricky, because you'll need a specific ability to get it, or an animal buddy to even get to the room where they're at. None of these are really that hard, but World 7 was just painful. Literal guessing game, nothing fun. The level design itself was about the same from other Kirby games at the time, but having a Kirby's Adventure type game on the Game Boy is really cool. And there's... oh no. If you know, you know. As for the bosses, you got Wispy Woods... Wispy... That was half a decade ago, buddy. Ruff and Nelly, the stupid idiot anglerfish that I hate, Ice Dragon, Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright, and Kracko. All of these bosses are pretty fun, except for one. And the ideas they have are pretty cool. And after you defeat the bosses, you can play a little mini-game. And yes, clearing these are required for 100%. They aren't really that challenging, but they're pretty fun. However, there's one boss I did not mention, and that, of course, is the final boss, King DDD. However, for some reason, he's asleep. His attacks are basically just the same from the first game, except sometimes he'll get mad and just go insanely fast, and his attacks are now insanely more explosive. This is shockingly a pretty tough deity battle, and after you defeat him, we get to see the names of the characters and enemies, and that's it. Except for one. Who the heck is this guy? I don't remember seeing him. Let's rewind a bit. Alright, now I've got all the rainbow drops. The rainbow drops fly in and create the rainbow sword. And this whole time, deity was possessed by an evil force, that being dark matter. This will become a trend in the later entries. He flies off into the sky, and Kirby chases him with the rainbow sword. This is the final boss of the game. Dark matter has a lot of defense. His attacks are pretty much just basic patterns, but he can summon dark magic, and repelling it back at him does a lot more damage. And once we defeat him, he reveals his true form. Now this phase is way harder. He's got a full 360-degree laser attack, as well as this stupid lightning move that I hate. Repelling the spheres he throws at you will deal more damage, and doing that will finally defeat him. Oh, there's the colors. The Rainbow Islands are restored, and dark matter is never, ever, ever coming back. Thanks for watching. However, we learn in Dreamland 3 that he's actually still alive somehow.